So today I wanted to cover the hellish landscape of dating apps, and how difficult they are for really everyone involved. Um, and I wanted to share an anecdote of my experiences with them. So I pretty much had the typical male experience of, if you're not like on the upper echelon, it's just a nightmare where you just get ignored and ignored and ignored. Um, so much so that it would actually be more efficient for me to just swipe on everyone and then filter them out later, once I got a accept, uh, because the vast majority would not even pay attention to you, and then the vast majority of the ones who do pay attention to you don't, because they'll accept your request or whatever it is. You'll match, and then not a word, radio silence. So that's the male experience for many, who are not like Brad Pitt types. Um, and then the female experience is you just get bombarded by messages, just absolutely bombarded, and there is no end in sight, ever really. And so I knew that going in. So I decided to do a little social experiment where I created a female account. Um, and I just picked, a reasonably attractive girl, who most people I think would consider pretty attractive. And the experience was enlightening, to say the least. Um, because I knew that the picture was bad, but I didn't quite know it was this bad. So to give you reference, I was on dating apps for like, I don't know, 5 years on and off, because it's depressing being on them. So you kind of go off of them, periodically, and then return when you don't get any luck in the real world either. Um, but the difference was amazing. Like in that time, like I would get like a few matches a week, as myself, and then uh, most of them wouldn't respond. It would be very difficult to have any kind of conversation. And then if you did have those conversations, it would just end in ghosting, or it would be like this. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Patternless experience of like, you don't know why things went wrong. They just went wrong. So I was like, okay, after a significant amount of time doing this, I was like, all right, this is enough. Let's let's see, being the inquisitive type that I am, let's see what it's like on the other side of the coin here. And the results, I didn't get to do it for that long because I got banned, but the results were shocking. I had no idea it was this bad. So picking a picture of an attractive girl, I got I just swiped. I did the same thing. I swiped on everybody. And within 15 minutes, and I know this because I um, timed it, within 15 minutes, almost every single person that I swiped on, first of all, matched me. Um, Almost every single one. And within 15 minutes, I was already at 99 plus. So I don't actually know how many matches I got, because it was just a tsunami of men just flooding me in so many messages. And every single one of them, if you responded, they would respond. So I tried to take it further. I was like, okay, let's see what it's like um, if I'm purposefully caustic. So if I'm as difficult as possible, um, so let's see if personality means anything to these people on these apps. And unfortunately to say, it didn't. In fact, it was actually a boon. This is somewhat the halo effect, where if you're weird but you're unattractive, then it's considered a double negative. But if you're weird and attractive, it's considered a positive. In fact, it's seen as quirky in a good way, and kind of sets you apart from other attractive people. So it's almost a double positive. But if you're the same way but unattractive, it's like a double negative. Um, and it was incredible. I openly advocated for the worst things I could think of, like certain movements in the 1940s, like certain things you could do in a graveyard, etc. Openly advocated for those things. Um, and people not only did not recoil, which is what would normally happen, or think you're a troll. They took it seriously, and they thought it was interesting. They thought I was the most interesting and unique person that they met. Now, granted, there's a lot of lying that happens in the dating game, because no one's genuine, and it's an infuriating problem for straight shooters such as myself, who really just don't like all the uh, pomp and circumstance and the euphemisms. But here we are. Um, but it was incredible. I openly insulted people. I said you look like a complete tool, and I would make fun of basically everything on their profile. And not only would they not contest that, they would agree with me. They would agree with me, and then still ask me to go on a date. And it was shocking, the the level of ease, the tutorial mode that these women have uh, in the dating sphere in terms of attracting a mate. Now, all of that said, attracting a quality mate is much more difficult. Um, I'd rather have the woman's problem, quite frankly, of essentially going shopping instead of going for a job interview. So the difficulty of choosing between 7,000 options versus the difficulty of being unemployed perpetually. But still, uh, it it was very eye opening because I've talked with a fair amount of girls about this, and they don't tend to have a lot of empathy for how it could be difficult for men because they're used to a lot of men uh, being sleazebags. And of course, if you're like disproportionately, you're going to get a lot of sleazebags because the type of guy who is going to have the wherewithal to approach you and try to ask you out is usually going to be an overconfident sleazebag type. So there's a selection bias there that they're dealing with. But regardless, it it is a bit distressing because the girls that I've talked to, and now not everyone is like this in the same way that there are men who understand women's issues acutely, um, but not many of them. Uh, they really didn't have any idea what it is like to feel perpetually lonely and unwanted without exception. They would feel unwanted by this or that guy that they wanted to be with, but that is not the same as just feeling unwanted in general, and isolated. It's a different level of experience. And I think there's an empathy gap among the genders because men, on the other hand, don't really have any idea what it is like to just be bombarded by men all the time or by the other gender all the time. Uh, and to just have the constant attention and all of what it does to your psyche, both good and bad. It can bolster your self esteem, but it can also make your self esteem very context dependent on attention. So it, essentially, if you stop getting that attention, then your self esteem is now in shambles. Um, and it can. I've met many women who are very wary about men, where the opposite is not true in the same way. They're worried about, are they going to be disrespectful? Are they going to be cruel? Are they going to be physically dominant, etc. Whereas, me being on the other end of the spectrum, I never worried about, you know, getting assaulted or anything like that. It was never a concern. uh, I'd be lucky if I got a text back, let alone someone being interested enough to, go out of their way to kidnap me. Um, so it's an incredibly different set of problems. Uh, and I think it's good that it's finally getting talked about. Um, and I also recommend to you, if you're on dating apps, to get off of them because they can be good in certain ways, and you can meet some good people there. But largely speaking, it is incredibly toxic environment to be in. I found that my mental health was really not doing well, uh, in regard to this horrible situation. Um, it's just not good for you. It's not good for you being rejected all the time, day in, day out. You develop an extremely cynical view of everything, which I already have. Um, and in the same way, if you're just bombarded by attention all the time and a bunch of creeps, you become extraordinarily suspicious. So you're always on guard, and then if an actual nice guy comes along and is who is worth your time and isn't just nice, but is worth your time, you'll likely reject him too because of this and that and all this essentially PTSD that you have. Um, and it's a mess for everyone. And it's really sad uh, that it happens that way. And I don't really know how the culture is going to adapt to it, aside from realizing that this is a nightmare.